Hello my scholars, this is my school YouTube channel and my name is Frank. In today's video we will be tackling JAMB CBT mathematics past questions. So relax, do not go anywhere, I will be right back. You are welcome back to the My School YouTube channel. In today's video, we shall be answering question 1 to 25. So let's begin with question 1. Evaluate log 4 base root 2 plus log 16 base 1 over 2 minus log 32 base 4. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So to answer questions of this kind where the bases are not the same, basically the best thing to do is to solve each of the questions. Then after solving them, you now combine the whole thing to get your answer. Okay, so here we are going to say let this be x, let this particular one be y, and let this be z. Okay, so since we are saying log 4 root 2 is equals to x, right? So we just write this in index form because this is in logarithmic form, right? So here we just have 4 is equals to root 2 raised to power x. Okay, so here we'll be having 2 raised to power 2. So here remember that root 2 is the same thing as 2 raised to power 1 over 2. Okay, and this is our x. So we have 2 raised to power 2 is now equals to 2 raised to power s all over 2. Okay, so since the bases are the same, right, we can equate the powers so that 2 is now equals to s all over 2, right? So this is also over 1, so we can cross multiply to get the value of s, so that s is now equals to 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so we have gotten the value of s. Now let's do the same thing for log 16 base 1 over 2. Okay, so here we are saying log 16 base 1 over 2 is equals to y. So in this case, 16 is now equals to 1 over 2, which is 2 raised to power minus 1 raised to power y, right? So we just express this in index form so that we have the same base as 2. Basically, that's what we did here too. Okay, so here we'll be having 2 raised to power 4. Okay, and this will be equals to 2 raised to power minus y. Right, so at the end of the day, since the bases are the same, we can equate the powers so that y is equals to minus 4, right? Because here we're having minus y is equals to 4, right? Since we're looking for y, we just multiply both sides by minus 1. Okay, so if we do that, we'll be having y to be equals to minus 4, right? So let's do for the last term. So here we are saying let log 32 base 4 be equals to z. So that 32 is equals to 4 raised to power z, right? So we just express in index form. So here we're having 2 raised to power 5 is equals to, here we're having 2 raised to power 2z. Okay, so let me cross it, right? So since the bases are the same, right, we can equate the power so that 5 is equals to 2z, right? Then we divide both sides by the coefficient of z to get the value of z. So that z is now equals to 5 all over 2. Okay, so these are the values for x, y, and z. So we just go back to the original equation and replace it with these answers. So here for s we have 4, then plus, because we have plus here. But y here we're having minus 4. Okay, then minus, here we have 5 all over 2, right? So remember that plus times minus is minus. So we actually have 4 minus 4. And 4 minus 4 is 0. So that means we have minus 5 over 2 left. Okay, so this will be 0. So we have minus 5 over 2 left. So minus 5 over 2 is the same thing as minus 2.5. That is 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question. And that is option B, minus 2.5. Question 2. Simplify 213 in base 4 times 23 in base 4. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So this is what we are asked to simplify. So there are two methods in which you can solve this. You can either decide to, first of all, convert these numbers to base 10, then multiply, get a result in base 10, and then convert it back to base 4. or you can multiply directly. Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to multiply directly, okay, without having to convert to base 10 first and then reconvert back to base 4. Okay, so we have 2, 1, 3 multiplied by 2, 3 in base 4. Okay, so this is how you go about it. First of all, you use 3 to multiply 3. That will give you 9, right? Then the next thing is how many 4 is in 9? And that is 2, remainder 1, right? That is 2 times 4 is 8. Then 8 minus 9, you have 1 left. So which is this one. So you write down the remainder. So write down the remainder and you carry the 2. Okay, so 3 times 1, that will be 3, plus 2, that will be 5, right? So how many 4 is in 5? Is 1, remainder 1. So you write down the remainder and you carry the 1. Okay, so 3 times 2, that is 6, plus that 1, that is 7. So how many 4 is in 7? Is 1, remainder 3. So you write down 3 and you carry that 1, but there's nothing again for you to carry the 1 here, so you just write down your 13. Okay, then you move to the next number, which is 2. So 2 times 3, that will be 6. Okay, so how many 4 is in 6? Is 1, remainder 2. Isn't it? So you write down your 2 here and you carry the 1. Okay, then 2 times 1, that is 2 times 1 is 2, plus that 1 is 3. So you can write that down 3 because it's less than 4. So you have 3 here. Then 2 times 2, that will be 4, right? So how many 4 is in 4? Is 1, remainder 0. So you write down the 0 and there's no place to add the 1 to, so you write down your 1 and 0. Then the next thing is you add. Okay, so 1 here will be 1 because it's less than 4, so you can write it down. Then 1 plus 2, that will be 3, so it's less than 4, so you can write it down. Then 3 plus 3 is 6. So how many 4 is in 6? That is 1, remainder 2. So you write down 2 here and you carry that 1. So 1 plus the 1 that you carried, that will be 2. Then you break this one down. So this is the result of multiplying 213 by 23 all in base 4. This is the result. That is 1, 2, 2, 3, 1 in base 4. Okay, so let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option C, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1 in base 4. Question 3. In a class of 40 students, 32 offer mathematics, 24 offer physics, and 4 offer neither mathematics nor physics. How many offer both mathematics and physics? So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. I think the easiest way to answer such question as this is for you to draw a Venn diagram. So basically we are going to be doing that. So we know the number of students, or the total number of students, to be equals to 40, right? So we are going to draw a Venn diagram. Now, one of the circle will represent mathematics, while the other one will represent physics. So let's say this is the circle for physics, while this is the one for maths. Okay, so according to the question, 32 students offered maths, while 24 offered physics, while 4 offered neither of the subjects. Okay, so we put our 4 here, right? So let S represent the number of students that offered both subjects. So we'll put X here. But then what we have in this half, we actually represent the number of students that offered only physics alone and only mathematics alone. So here we'll be having minus S, and here we also have minus S. Okay, to represent those that offer physics only and mathematics only. Okay, why the small circle here represent those that offered both subjects. Why the 4 side here simply means that these 4 persons did not offer either of the subjects. Okay, so if we add all this together, it should be equal to the total number of students. So we'll be having 32 minus x plus 24 minus x plus 4. This should be equal to 40. Now, since we are looking for x, so this s, we take this out, we add this and this. I think that should be 60. 32 plus 24, that will be 56 plus 4, that is 60. So you have 60 minus s is equals to 40. Right, so we can move s to this side and bring 40 to this side, so that s is equals to 60 minus 40, that will be equals to 20. Okay, so the number of students that offered both subjects is equals to 20. So if you want to get the number of students that offered only maths, it's just for you to subtract this 20 from 32, or only physics, that is 24 minus 20, and if you add everything together, it should be equals to 40, okay, to show that your calculation is correct. Okay, let's move over to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option A, 20. Question 4. Find in bracket 1 over 0.06 divided by 1 over 0.042 bracket close raised to power minus 1. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So this is the question that we are given, that we are asked to find, right? So basically, these values here, that is the denominator of these fractions inside this bracket. First of all, we have to change them to fraction, okay? So 0.06 is the same as 6 over 100, right? So this is to 2 decimal places. We just multiply by 100 and also divide by 100, okay, to get this. So here we also have over 1, then divided by, so we'll do the same to this. So this is 1 to 3 to 3 decimal places. So we'll multiply by 1000 and also divide by 1000. So we'll be having 1 over 42 all over 1000. Okay, so because we have zeros here, and 0 in this case is insignificant. For example, if I write 042, it's the same thing as 42. If I write 06, it's the same thing as 6. So we have to throw away those 0 because they are not significant. Okay, so still have raised to power minus 1. So if we have 3 steps of fraction like this denominator moves to the top. So we now have 100 all over 6, then divided by, the same thing applies here, 1000 all over 42, still raised to power minus 1. Then the next thing is we want to deal with what's inside the fraction first. So we write our 100 over 6, then we change this division sign to times, then we flip the last fraction. So you'll be having 42 all over 1000, right? So yes, 6 here is going to give us 1. So 6 here will give us 7. 1000 here is going to give us 1, and 1000 here is going to give us 10. So we actually have, okay, this is also raised to power 1, right? So we now have 7 all over 10 raised to power minus 1. Right, so since we have raised to power minus 1 here, it's just for us to flip what we have inside the bracket. So that will be having 10 all over 7. So 10 divided by 7, that will give us 1 point. So we'll have 3 left. So that 3 will add 0 to it. How many 7 is in 30? Yeah. So that will be like, for that is 28. So we write down 4 and we have 2 left. So that will add 0 to it. So how many 7 is in 20? Okay. That will be 2 remainder 6. Okay, so how many 7 is in 60? That will be like 8. Okay, that will be like 8, remainder 4 or so. Okay, so we have 8 here, so remainder 4. Put another 0 to it. How many 4 is there? So I think we don't need all that. So that will be like 6. Okay, so now we just need to approximate this to 2 decimal places, so that at the end of the day we have 1.43. Okay, so let's just leave it here based on the options that we have on the screen. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option A, 1.43. Question 5. A woman buys 270 oranges for 1,800 naira and sells at 5 for 40 naira. What is her profit? So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. Now remember that profit is equals to selling price minus cost price. Okay, so let's use CP for cost price. So now for this orange, we already know the cost price. So the cost price is 1,800, but we don't know the selling price. So we need to find the selling price. Now remember that this woman sold each 5 oranges, okay, for 40 naira. That is 5 oranges for 40 naira, and there are about 270 oranges. So how do we know the cost price? So what we simply do is that this 270 we just divide it by 50. Okay, we just divide it by 5, sorry. So if we divide it by 5, 270 divided by 5, I think this should be like 54. So there are 54 5s, okay, in 270. But remember that each 5s was sold for 40 naira. So to get the cost of 54 5s, that will be 54 times 40. Okay, I think this will be equals to 2,106 naira. So this is the selling price, okay, for the 270 oranges. Now, since we are looking for price, so we're just fixing those values here. So you'll be having our profits now equals to the selling price, okay, minus the cost price, which is 1,800. Okay, so let's just do this. So here will be 6. So here cannot, so we'll borrow 1 from here, and this becomes 11. So 11 minus 8, that will be 3. Okay, so that will be 360 naira. Okay, so the woman's profit is equals to 360 naira. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D, 360 naira. Question 6. Simplify 1 minus bracket open 7 over 3 times 5 over 4 bracket close plus 3 over 5. So let's move over to the board to simplify that fraction. Okay, so this is the question that we are asked to simplify. So the first thing to do is to first of all deal with what is in the bracket, right? So you'll be having 1 minus, so let's deal with what is in the bracket. So we just multiply directly, and this will be 35 all over 12. So this is what we have in the bracket, then plus 3 all over 5. I think we can go straight here. Okay, so this is also over 1. So we don't look for the LCM of the denominator, which is LCM of 1, 12, and 5, and that is 60. Okay, so 1 into 60 is 3 means 60. 60 times 1, you will have 60. Then minus 12 into 60, that is 5. So 5 times 35. So 5 times 5 here is 5. I think that is 175. Okay, then plus, which is this plus sign. Then 5 into 60. That will be 12. So 12 times 3, that is 36, right? So here, this we add to this. So we have 96 minus 175 all over 60. Okay? So 96 minus 175, I think that will be minus 79. Then all over 60. So let's just check 175 minus 96. So borrow 1 from here. Okay, so here will be 9. Then here we'll have 6 left, borrow 1 here. I think that should be 7. So we are correct. So our final answer is minus 79 all over 60. So let's move back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option B, minus 79 all over 60. Question 7. Simplify root 98 minus root 50 all over root 32. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So this question is undersolved, right? So basically we can't solve like this because these sorts are not similar. For example, we can't say root 98 minus root 50, right? It's not possible because they are not similar sorts. So the next thing to do in that case is just for us to break down and see if we can obtain a similar sort. Okay, so 98 or root 98 is the same as, say, root 49 times root 2, because 49 times 2 is going to give us 98. Okay, and root 49 times root 2 is equal to root 98. Then minus 50, that will be 25 times root 2. Okay, all over. So for 32, that will be, for root 32, that will be root 16 times root 2. Okay, so now root 49 is 7, then times root 2. Then minus, that will be 5 root 2 divided by, so this will be 4 root 2, right? So here now we have similar sort because the irrational part of both sorts now are the same. So in that case, we can subtract or add the rational part, which is the 7 and the 5, right? So if we do that, we'll be having 2 root 2 all over 4 root 2. I think root 2 can take out root 2, so that 2 here is 1 and 2 here is 2. So at the end of the day, we'll have 1 over 2. Okay, so let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option C, 1 over 2. Question 8. A cinema hall contains a certain number of people. If 22 1 over 2% are children, 47 1 over 2% are men, and 84 are women, find the number of men in the hall. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. Of course, there are different ways in which you can approach this question, but this is how I'm going to approach this question. So basically, I'm going to say let the number or the total number of people, okay, the total number of people, let's use total number of people will be x, right? So they said 22% of s is children. So here we just say times x. Here we also do times s. But here we have the definite number of women. Okay, so in this case, the number of women is not in percentage of the total number of persons, okay, in the cinema hall. So since the total number of people is this, we can actually calculate for the definite number of men in the hall. Remember that 22.5% simply means 22.5 all over 100, the same thing with 47.5%, right? So to get the total number of persons, we just go 22.5x plus 47.5x, then plus 84 is equals to x, because that is the total number of persons that are present in the hall, right? So what do we do next? So this is the same thing as 22.5x all over 100 because it's in percentage, y plus 47.5x all over 100, then plus 84, and this is equals to x. So we move all this to the other side of the equation, so that at the end of the day we have x minus 22.5x all over 100, then plus 47.5x all over 100 is equals to 84, right? So the LCM here is 100, right? So here, let me continue from here. So here we'll be having 100, which is the LCM of 100 and 100, because we are dealing with this part first. That is the left hand side first, okay? So 1 into 100 is going to give us 100. So 100 times s, here we're having 100x minus 100 divided by 100 is 1. 1 times 22.5s still remains 22.5x, then minus the same thing with this. So that will be 47.5x, okay? And this is equals to 84, right? So now here, 100x minus 22.5x minus 47.5s, that will be equals to 30x, because 22.5x plus 47.5x is equals to 70. So 70x, 100 minus 70x is 30x. So here we have 30x all over 100 is equals to 84. So basically what I'm seeking to do here is just for me to get the total number of the whole people in the cinema hall first. So if we cross multiply, we'll be having 30x, okay, is equals to 84 times 100, right? So 0 will take out 0. So we have s to be equals to 84 times, okay, that is 480 divided by 3, right? So let's divide. How many 3 is in 8? That will be 2, remainder 2. Then how many 2 is in 24? That will be 8. Then there will be 0. So the total number of persons in the hall is equals to 280, right? Now they say we should look for the number of men. So here we'll be having 47.5, okay, all over 100 times 280. So this should give us the number of persons in the hall. So this, we cancel this out, right? And then this we also cancel 1. So here we have 4.75 times 28, okay? And that this should be equals to 133, okay? So the number of men in the hall is equals to 133. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D, 133. Question 9. If 9 raised to power 2s minus 1 over 27 raised to power x plus 1 is equals to 1, find the value of s. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So basically, there are two ways in which you can solve this question. You can decide to first of all cross multiply, or you can decide to just simplify or evaluate direct. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is just to make the base of 9 here to be the same as the base of 27. Okay, so this will be equals to 3 raised to power 3, then raised to power 2x minus 1 for the numerator. Why for the denominator? Sorry, this is raised to power 2. Why here we have 3 raised to power 3, then bracket open x plus 1 in bracket is equals to 1, right? So yes, since the bases are the same and we are dividing, so what we simply do, we just take one of the base, and then subtract the powers, right? So, but first of all, let's open this bracket. So this will be 2 times 2s, that is 4x, then minus 2 times minus 1, that will give us 2, right? Let's put this in brackets again, then minus, so here since we are dividing according to the law of indices, so we subtract the powers. So 3 times x, that will give us 3x, then 3 times plus 1, that will give us plus 3. Okay, so this is equals to 1, right? So here, let's open this. So we'll be having 3, then you'll be having 4x minus 2, then minus 3x, then minus 3. Because this minus here affects everything inside the bracket. So that's why we have minus 3s and minus 3, and this is equals to 1. But remember that before we can equate powers, right, the basis must be the same. The basis on both sides must be the same. This one, we can as well still write it as 3 raised to power 0, because 3 raised to power 0 is the same thing as 1. So here we have 3 raised to power 4x. So 4s minus 3s, that will be x. Let's just go straight. Then here we'll be having minus 5, and this is equals to 3 raised to power 0, right? So the bases are the same now, so we can equate power. So that we will be having x minus 5 is equals to 0. So we just move this minus 5 to the other side of the equation so that we can get the value of x. Then s is now equals to 5. Okay, so this is the value of x. Now let's move back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option B, 5. Do you know you can take practice question with our simulated JAMB CBT past question? All you need to do is to click on the link in the description below, and that will take you to my school website. There you will have to download my school mobile app for your Android and iOS devices, and the My School software for your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Moving on to question 10. The sum of 4 numbers is 1, 2, 1, 4 in base 5. What is the average expressed in base 5? So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So first of all, we have to convert this number that is given to us, that is the sum of those 4 numbers. We have to first of all convert them to base 10, okay? And then after we've converted them to base 10, then we can now look for the average. So once we get the average, then we can now convert it back to base 5, okay? That's just how to approach this question. So to convert this to base 10, I think it's one of the easiest things to do. So here will be 0, here will be 1, here will be 2, here will be 3. So here we'll be having 1 times 5 raised to power 3 plus 2 times 5 raised to power 2 plus 1 times 5 raised to power 1 plus 4 times 5 raised to power 0. Okay, so 1 times anything is that thing. So 5 raised to power 3 is 125. Then that is 25 times 5. Okay, while here we'll be having 2 times 5 raised to power 2 is 25 times 2, that is 50. Then plus 1 times 5 raised to power 1 is still 5, right? Then plus 4 times 5 raised to power 0. Remember, any number raised to power 0 is 1. So 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, so here we'll be having 130, right? That is 125 plus 5 is 130. Then plus 50 is 180 plus 4, that is 148 in base 10, right? So these are the sum of the 4 numbers in base 10. So since we are looking for the average is the same thing as mean. So for us to get the average, we just divide this value in base 10 by 4. So here we have 184 divided by 4. Okay, so this will be equals to 4 in 18. How many 4 is in 18? We have 48 basically, because 4 in 18 will give us 4 remainder. So put the 2 behind here, that gives you 24. 4 in 24 is 6. Sorry, 4 in 24 is 6. So this is in base 10. So this value that is in base 10, we have to convert it to base 5, okay, to give us the average of these 4 numbers expressed in base 5. So here we have 46 and here we have 5, okay. So how many 5 is in 46? That will be 9, remainder 1. How many 5 is in 9? That will be 1, remainder 4. So here, write down 0, remainder 1. So take our answer from down to up. So that will be equals to 141 in base 5. Okay, so the four numbers, the average of the four numbers expressed in base 5 is equals to 141 in base 5. Okay, so let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option B, 141, and that is in base 5. I believe you are enjoying this video content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, put on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we upload the next videos. Question 11. Given U, that is the universal set, even numbers between 0 and 30, P, multiples of 6 between 0 and 30, Q, multiples of 4 between 0 and 30, find P union Q complement. Okay, so let's move over to the board to provide answer for this question. So the best thing, or the first thing to do, is just to write out the element, because in this question the elements were not specifically stated, but we are just told that, for example, for the universal set, even numbers between 0 and 30. So let's list them. Okay, so here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30. So these are the even numbers between 0 and 30. That is numbers divisible by 2 without remainder, right? While for P, they said multiples of 6 between 0 and 30. So the multiples of 6 between 0 and 30 are 6. So we are going to be having 12. Then we'll have 18. We're going to have 24. Then we'll have 30. Okay, so these are the multiples of 6 between 0 and 30. Then for Q, multiples of 4 between 0 and 30. So that will be 4, that will be 8, that will be 12, that will be 16, that will be 20, that will be 24, that will be 28, and that's the end. So these are the elements of this. So first of all, let's look for, since we are looking for P union Q complement, first of all, let's look for P union Q first. Okay, that is what is common between P and Q. Okay, so here we have not really what is common, all the elements that are in P that are also in Q without repetition. Okay, so for Q we have 4. Okay, so we also have 6, we have 8, we have 12, we have 16, we have 18, we have 20, we have 24, and we have 28, then we also have 30. Okay, so this is P union Q. Now let's look for P union Q complement. Okay, so P union Q complement means all the elements that we have here that does not, or that is not in this place, that's not in P union Q, right? So let's check. So for example, here we don't have 2, so we write 2 out. Okay, then we have 2, 4, 6, but we don't have 10, so we write out 10. So if you check very well, we don't have 14, so we write out 14. So if you check very well, we don't have 22, write down 22. We don't have 26, write down 26. So this is P union Q complement. That is 2, 10, 14, 22, and 26. Okay, so that is P union Q complement. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option A. That is 2, 10, 14, 22, and 26. Question 12. S varies directly as the product of U and V, and inversely as their sum. If S is equals to 3 when U is equals to 3 and V is equals to 1, what is the value of X if U is equals to 3 and V is equals to 3? So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So in this question, we are told that S varies directly as the product of U and V, okay? Then, and inversely as the sum of U and V, so you have U plus V. Okay, so this is just that statement, right? Then the next thing is just for us to introduce a constant so that we can have an equation. So S is now equals to K U V all over U plus V. So if you check very well, we are given the value of X, we are given the value of U, and we are given the value of v. Now the essence of those three values so that we can get the constant. So let's fix it here. So here we have 3, here we have k, then we have 3 times v is 1, then here we have 3 plus 1, right? So here we have 3 is equals to k or 3k, okay, because 3 times k times 1 is 3k. Then all over here is 4. So we just cross multiply. So if we cross multiply, we'll be having 12 is equals to 3k, so that k is equals to 4. That is, we divide both sides by the coefficient of k. Okay, so now we rewrite this equation, but then we now introduce the value of k. So s is now equals to 4 u times v all over u plus v. So the essence of these two values so that we can get the value of x. Okay, so since we are looking for s, we put x here. While here we have 4, then dot 3 dot 3, because u is 3 and v is also 3. Then all over, so here we have 3 plus 3. Okay, so s is now equals to 4, which is 36. Okay, just go straight. That is 4 times 3 is 12 times 3, that is 36. We have 36 all over 6. So 36 divided by 6, that will be equals to 6. So the value of s is equals to 6 when u is equals to 3 and v is equals to 3. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option C, 6. Question 13. Find the range of the value of s satisfying the inequalities. 5 plus s is less than or equal to 8, and 13 plus s is greater than or equal to 7. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So these are two different inequalities. So we solve them one after the other. So for the first one, we have 5 plus s is less than or equal to 8. So here we just make s the subject of formula by moving 5 to the other side of the equation, so that s is less than or equal to 8 minus 5, and that is 3. So s is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so that is the result for the first equation. While for the second one, we have 13 plus s is greater than or equal to 7. The same thing, we move 13 to this side, so that s is greater than or equal to 7 minus 13. Okay, so and this equals to 6 minus 6. So s is greater than or equal to minus 6. Okay, so the next thing is for us to combine these two results, right? So here s is less than or equal to 3, while for here s is greater than, okay, or equal to 6, right? Now we can rewrite this. In other words, we can as well read this to be minus 6 is less than or equal to x, right? So in that case, we'll be having minus 6 is less than or equal to x, while here we have the less than or equal to 3. So this becomes our answer if we put both results together. Okay, so let's move back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option C, minus 6 is less than or equal to x, and s is less than or equal to 3. Question 14. The graph of the function y is equals to s squared plus 4 and a straight line PQ are drawn to solve the equation s squared minus 3x plus 2 is equals to 0. What is the equation of PQ? So let's move over to the board to provide an answer to this question. So PQ is a straight line. To get the equation of a straight line, we normally use y is equals to mx plus c, right? So basically what we are going to be doing is that we are going to be equating these two equations. Then afterward, we now look for coefficients. So here we have mx plus c is equals to s squared plus 4. Okay, so we can move everything here to our right hand side. So we have s squared plus 4 minus mx, then minus c, right? This is equals to 0. So we arrange this properly. So here we have s squared, then minus mx, then here we have plus 4 minus c is equals to 0. So we can put these two together and put these two together. So what do? We just compare it with this equation, okay, that is given to us, right? So here we have minus, and here we also have minus. So that means the coefficient of x here, our m is equals to 3, okay? So m is equals to 3, okay? And then we also compare here. Remember here we have 4 minus c, which stands for the constant here, and here we also have 2. So that means we have 4 minus c to be equals to 2. So here, since we are looking for c, we'll move 4 to the other side. So that we'll be having minus c is equals to minus 2. Okay, so minus, you cancel minus. So c is equals to 2, right? So since we have these values, we can now substitute it into this equation to get the equation of the line PQ. Okay, so here we'll be having y to be equals to, our m is 3, so we have 3x, then plus our c is 2. So this is the equation. But then if you don't want to use this method, then you can just equate these two equations together. Okay, equate this and this together. You also have 3x. At the end of the day, we are going to be having 3s plus 2 as your final answer. So you can use any method that you find convenient. Okay, so y is equals to 3s plus 2. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option B. Y is equals to 3s plus 2. Question 15. The length a person can jump is inversely proportional to his weight. If a 20 kg person can jump 1.5 meters, find the constant of proportionality. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So in this question, we are having the length a person can jump being inversely proportional to his weight. So we'll be having something like this, right? So we need to introduce our constant, which is the constant of proportionality that they said we should find, right? So the height a person can jump to, the length a person can jump to is given as 1.5. Why this is k, why the weight of the person is 20. So we are looking for k. We just cross multiply. So that k is equals to, remember that 1.5 is 3 over 2, k, times 20 all over 1, so that we can multiply easily. So 2 here is 1, 2 here is 10. So k is equals to 30. Okay, so the constant of proportionality is equals to 30. Now let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option B, 30. Question 16. Find the value of x and y respectively if 3s minus 5y plus 5 is equals to 0 and 4s minus 7y plus 8 is equals to 0. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So these are the two equations that are given to us. So if you are given such equation, you can rewrite it, okay, so that you can solve both of them simultaneously, or you can as well just solve like that. Maybe probably make as the subject of formula in one of them and just substitute it into the other one. But I'll prefer to rewrite the equation. So for the first one, we'll be having 3x minus 5y, that equals to minus 5. Just move 5 to the side. Then 4x minus 7y is equals to minus 8. Move 8 to this side, right? Then next thing, since I want to solve using elimination method, right, I have to make either the coefficient of x in both equations the same or the coefficient of y in both equations the same. So for the case of this question, I want to make the coefficient of y in both equations the same. Okay, so here I'll multiply by 7 and here I'll multiply by 5, right? Using the coefficient of 5 in the first equation to multiply through the second equation, then also doing the same thing for the first equation. So here I'll be having 21x minus 35y is equals to minus 35. While here I will be having, since I'm multiplying by 5, I'll be having 20x minus 35y is equals to minus 40, right? So let's just call this equation 1, call this equation 2, okay? Then the next step, since we are using the elimination method, right, and the signs are the same. So since the signs are the same, whether positive or negative, what you simply do is, in this case, you as well subtract, right? So here, let's say we are removing equation 1 from equation 2, okay? We are removing equation 1 from equation 2, okay? So here we'll be having 20x minus 21, that will give us minus x, okay? While here, this one goes, right? So here we'll be having minus 40 minus 35, that is minus 35. Minus 40 minus, which is the minus here, then minus 35. So this is changed to plus, right? So we have minus 40 plus 35. That will give you minus 5. So here we have minus 5. So minus cancel minus, so that s is equals to 5. Now that we know the value of s, we can put it in any of the equation, whether here, or even here, to get the value of y. So let's use equation, let's use this, which is 3x minus 5y is equals to minus 5. So anywhere we see x here, we replace it with 5. So here we'll be having 3 bracket 5 minus 5y is equals to minus 5. Let's continue from here. Then we'll be having 15 minus 5y is equals to minus 5. So move 15 to the other side, since we are looking to make y the subject of formula. So we're having minus 5y is equals to minus 5 minus 15, right? Because 15 is positive here. So once it crosses the equal to sign, it's going to change to minus on the other side. So we have minus 5y is equals to minus 20. So minus, we cancel out minus. We divide both sides by the coefficient of y, which is 5. So that y is equals to 20 divided by 5, and that is 4. So we can say s is equals to 5 and y is equals to 4. Okay, so let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D. Okay, s is 5 and y is equal to 4. Question 17. 3 consecutive terms of a geometric progression are given as n minus 2 and n plus 3. Find the common ratio. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. We know that the common ratio, CR, okay, the common ratio of geometric progression is given as the second term divided by the first term, right? And this will also be equal to the third term divided by the second term. So these are the 3 consecutive terms that are given to us according to this question. The first term is n minus 2, the second is n, while the last is n plus 3. Okay, so here we just substitute. There will be n minus 2. Okay, that is n over n minus 2 should be equals to, this is t2, sorry. So this will be n plus 3 all over n for t2, right? So we just cross multiply. So if we cross multiply, we have n squared is equals to, so n times n, that will be n squared. Then n times 3, that will be plus 3n. Then minus 2 times n, that will be minus 2n. And then minus 2 times 3, that will be minus 6. Okay, so we can move this n to this side, so that we'll be having n squared minus n squared. Then 3n minus 2n, that will be n, then minus 6 is equals to 0. Okay, so this, we cancel this out, so that n minus 6 is equals to 0. Now we are looking for n. Okay, so we don't move minus 6 to the other side, so that n is equals to 6. Okay, so now we know the value of n, but that's not the common ratio. So the common ratio is this. Okay, and this has been represented with this. So anywhere we see n, we just replace it with 6. So we can use either of them. Either we are using this or we are using this. Okay, because this is also a common ratio, this is another common ratio, and they are equal. Okay, so here, let's use this. So here we're having 6 all over, then we have 6 minus 2. And this equals to 6 all over 4, right? So if we break it down, 2 here is 3 and 2 here is equals to 2. So the common ratio is 3 all over 2. Okay, so let's move to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D, 3 over 2. Question 18. The triangle OPQ above is the solution of the inequality. So this is the triangle above, right? The triangle OPQ, right? So basically, here, if you are given a question like this, first of all, what you have to first of all look out for is the line. Is the line broken or not? So for this question, the line is not broken. So that means we don't have straight inequality. We actually have weak inequality, right? So in that case, we are going to be using greater than or equal to or less than or equal to replace these equal to signs that we have in these equations of this line, right? So basically what we do is just to consider the line one after the other. So let's consider this line, right? So if you look at this line, you find out that the upper part of this line is involved in getting this triangle. the upper part of this line. This side is the lower part, okay? So since the upper part of this line is involved, that means we are going to be having greater than or equal to. So we now use that greater than or equal to replace this equal to that we have here. So this line now becomes y minus x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, then we'll now go for this other line. Now, if you look at this other line, you discover that the lower part is involved, okay, in constructing this triangle. The lower part, not the upper part. So this is the upper part and this is the lower part. So since the lower part is involved, we are going to be having less than. So in place of this equal to, we'll replace it with less than or equal to. So for this line, we're having y plus s is less than or equal to 0, okay, because the lower part is involved in drawing this diagram, okay, drawing this triangle, right? Now let's consider the last line, which is this. Now if you look at this line carefully, you discover that the front, okay, which is this side, is involved in drawing this triangle or in constructing the triangle, not the back. Okay, so since the front is involved, then this equation here will change it to x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. So that is just it, right? So now let's look at this value carefully and choose the appropriate one from the options that are given to us. Okay, so if we look at this equation for option A, we have s plus 1 is greater than 0. I think we have the s plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Then let's go for the next one. Y plus x is less than or equal to 0. So here we have y plus s is less than or equal to 0. While the last one we have y minus s is less than or equal to 0. And here we also have y minus s is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so this is the correct option for this question. Okay, option A. Question 19. Factorize completely 4abx minus 2asy minus 12b squared x plus 6bsy. So let's move over to the board to factorize, right? So this is the algebraic expression that we are asked to factorize completely. So if you look at it carefully, before you factorize, you have to look at the algebraic expression carefully. So if you look at it carefully, discover that s is common throughout. There's s here, there's s here, there's s here, and there's s here. And secondly, 2 can as well divide throughout, right? So first of all, let's bring out 2s. So bring out 2s. So here we'll be having 2ab left, then minus. Here we'll just have ay left, okay? Then minus. Here we'll be having 6b squared left. Then here we'll be having plus 3by left, right? Then we can now factorize this. So let's write out this one outside first. So if we factorize these two, we can group them. If we factorize these two, put them in brackets. If we factorize these two, here we'll be having something is common here, and which is a. So we can bring out a, so that we'll be having 2b minus y left here. Then our minus. Then if you check here carefully, something is also common, right? 3b is common, so we can bring out the 3b, and here we'll be having 2b, then minus, it's going to be minus, because this minus outside there is affecting everything inside the bracket, okay? So here we'll now be having y, since we already removed 3b from here, like dividing through by 3b, right? So at the end of the day, we'll be having, now if you check what you have in this bracket and what you have in this bracket, they are the same. So we'll be having 2x, then bracket open, bring this out, a minus 3b, in one bracket, and another bracket, 2b minus y, okay? So this become the algebraic expression when it is completely factorized. So let's move over to the screen to pick the correct option for this question. Remember, we have 2x, then bracket open, a minus 3b, then another bracket, 2b minus y. So let's move over to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option A. So we can as well still compare. So we have 2x, then bracket open, a minus b, which is a minus 3b in one bracket. Then on the other bracket, we have 2b minus y. Okay, so that makes option A the correct answer for this question. Do you have any question to ask? If yes, please feel free to ask your question by simply clicking on the link in the description below, and that will take you to my school website. There you can ask all your questions, and our army of solution providers will provide answers to all your questions within a short period of time. Moving on to question 20. The sum of the first n terms of an arithmetic progression is 252. If the first term is minus 16 and the last term is 72, find the number of terms in the series. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. Okay, so to find the sum of the n terms of an arithmetic progression, we actually have two formulas that we can use, and one of them is n over 2, then bracket 2a plus n minus 1, then d in bracket. Okay, then the another one is n over 2, then bracket a plus l. So we can use any of this depending on the values that are given to us, or each of the terms that are given to us in the question. So for the sake of this question, we are giving first term and we are giving also the last term. So in that case, we are going to be solving using this. Okay, but remember, the sum of the first n terms is given to us to be equals to 252. So you're right, 252 is equals to n all over 2 bracket. So the first term they said is minus 16, then plus the last term they said is 72, right? So we can cross multiply. So if we cross multiply, we're having 4, this will be 0, then this will be 5. Okay, 5 for 4 is now equals to n, then minus 16 plus 72 is 72 minus 16. I think this will be 1, this will be 6, this will be 6, that is 56, okay? So here we have 504 is equals to 56n. So we are looking for n, right? So we have to divide both sides by 56, which is the coefficient of n. So that n is equals to 504 divided by 56. And this is equals to 9, okay? So the value of n, or the number of terms, is equals to 9. So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D, 9. If you have better steps or solution to any of these questions, please share this information by going to the comment section to comment the question number and the solution you wish to share. Question 21. A trapezium has two parallel sides of length 5 centimeters and 9 centimeters. If the area is 21 centimeters square, find the distance between the parallel sides. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. We know that area of trapezium is given as 1 over 2 bracket open a plus b bracket close h. So for this question, let's say this is the trapezium. So these are the two parallel sides. So one is 5 centimeters, the other one is 9 centimeters, but we don't know the height, which is actually the distance between the two sides, right? But here we are given the area to be equals to 21 centimeters square. So we can actually calculate for the distance between the parallel sides, right? So here we have 21 is equals to 1 over 2 bracket open a. So here we're having 5 plus 9, the two parallel sides, then times h. Okay, so we just cross multiply. So here we have 42, or we multiply both sides by 2 to cancel out 2 from here. Okay, from our right hand side. So here we have 42 is equals to, add this to that will be 14h, right? So since we are looking for h, that is the distance between the two parallel sides, we simply divide both sides by the coefficient of h, which is 14. So h is equals to 42 divided by 14. So let's divide gradually. 7 here is going to give us 2. 7 here is going to give us 6. Then 2 here is 1. 2 here is 3. So h is equals to 3. That is the distance between the two parallel sides is equals to 3 centimeters. Now let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option A, 3 centimeters. Question 22. The locus of a point P which moves on one side only of a straight line SY, so that angle SPY is equals to 90 degrees is. So to answer this question, it's proper for us to just make a simple sketch of the statement. Okay, so this is the line XY, okay, and this is the locus of the point P, and this point P only moves on one side, so the movement is restricted to one side. Okay, then we are told that it makes an angle with here, to be equals to 90 degrees. Okay, equals to 90 degrees. So basically, if you look at this very well, you are actually, or they are actually talking about a semicircle. Why? Because the movement of the locus is restricted to only one side, okay, of the line, and the line SY is constant, so it moves from here to here and returns back, and this will trace out a semicircle. Okay, so that makes option B the correct answer to this question. So the locus of a point P which moves on one side only of a straight line SY, so that angle SYP is equals to 90 degrees, is actually a semicircle. So that makes option B the correct answer to this question. Question 23. Find the slope of the curve y is equals to 2s squared plus 5s minus 3 at x at 1, 4. Okay, so let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. Now remember, the slope of a curve is still the same as saying the gradient of the curve, right? So let's use m to represent the slope. So m is equals to y2 minus y1 all over s2 minus s1. But basically here we don't actually need this formula. Okay, so remember, slope 2 is also equals to the y. This is also equals to the y ds. That is change in y all over change in s, right? So basically, for us to get the slope of this curve, we have to differentiate it. So you'll be having the y, the s, and that will be equals to 4s, okay, plus 5, right? 4s, in the sense that you use 4 to multiply, you use 2, sorry, to multiply 2, that will give you 4. Then you subtract 1 from the 2, and that will give you x raised to power 1. And x raised to power 1 is the same thing as x. Then the same thing, the power of s here is 1, right? It's basically, it's not written because it doesn't really have any effect as such. So 1 times 5 is still 5. Then, now remember your s raised to power 1, right? Now, 1 minus 1, just like the way we subtracted 1 from here, that will give you 0. S raised to power 0 is still 1, so that's why we have 5 here. This is constant, so definitely it's going to be 0. More or less like, say you have x raised to power 0, right? Now we want to find the value at this point. So basically we only need this, because this stands for x and this stands for y. So here, anywhere we see x, we replace it with 1. So you'll be having 4 bracket 1 plus 5, and that will be equals to 9. Okay? So let's return back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option D. But remember, if you're having issue with differentiation and integration, then you can subscribe to the Myschool topic by topic maths lesson for you to learn more about integration and other topics in mathematics that are a little bit challenging to you. Subscribing to that video will help you to understand them better. Okay, so but remember, the answer to this question is option D9. Question 24. Evaluate s squared minus 2x dx, where the limit is given to us to be 2, 3, and 2. So let's move over to the board to provide answer to this question. So this question is under integration. Like I said earlier, if you're having issue with integration and differentiation, you can subscribe to the Myschool Mathematics topic by topic video lesson to learn more about integration, most especially for those who didn't offer mathematics in their O-level when they are in secondary school. It will really help you. Okay, so we are asked to integrate this where we are giving limits. So this is a definite integration because of the limits that are given to us. Okay, so basically to integrate this, what we simply do is we add 1 to the power, right, of x, and then use that power to divide the s itself. So you'll be having s raised to power 3 divided by 3. Okay, basically. While you'll be having minus. So here we also do the same thing. The power of s is 1. So we add 1 to it. Then that 1 we use it to divide the 2s raised to power 2, because we now be having 2s raised to power 2. So you'll be having 2s raised to power 2 divided by 2. Okay, so here we'll be having our limit 3 and 2. So this is also equals to 3s raised to power 3 all over 3, then minus s squared. So now we can now fix in our limit. So let's do it on this part of the board. Okay, so for the upper limit, we'll be facing 3 here. So you'll have 3 raised to power 3 all over 3, then minus 3 squared as 1, then minus the lower limit. So here we'll be having 2 raised to power 3 all over 3, then minus 2 raised to power 2, okay, all in bracket. So here, 3 raised to power 3 is 27. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So you'll be having 9 minus 3 raised to power 2 is 9, okay. While here you'll be having 2 raised to power 3 is 8. So you'll be having 8 all over 3, then minus 2 raised to power 2 is 4. Okay, so this part is out. Now remember, this minus is affecting everything inside the bracket. So here we'll be having minus 8 all over 3, then plus 4 all over 1. Okay, so we can simplify this. So that LCM of 3 and 1 is 3. So here, 3 into 3, that will give us 1. So 1 times minus 8, we still have our minus 8 here, then plus. Now, 1 into 3, that will give us 3. 3 times 4. That will give us 12, so we have 12 here. So at the end of the day, we have minus 8 plus 12. That will be equals to 4 all over 3. Okay, so the answer to this question is 4 all over 3. Now let's move back to the screen to pick the correct option for this question, and that is option C, 4 over 3. Question 25. If y is equals to 3 sine, bracket open, minus 4x, bracket close, dy dx. So basically they're asking you to differentiate 3 sine, bracket open, minus 4x, okay, bracket close. So if you are given a question like this, don't bother yourself too much. It's very easy. Just use the coefficient of x, okay, in this case, which is minus 4, to multiply whatever you have behind, whatever number you have behind. So in this case, we have 3 behind the sign, right? So if you multiply minus 4 by 3, that equals to minus 12. Okay, then after you've done that, the next thing is just for you to differentiate the sign. So whenever you differentiate sign, you are going to be having cos. So that will now give you minus 12 cos. So what do you do to the minus 4 that was in front of the sign? You just rewrite it again in front of the cos. So you now be having minus 4s also in brackets. So this is the differentiation of 3 sine minus 4x, okay, and that is minus 12 cos minus 4s. And that is option C. Okay, so that makes option C the correct answer to this question. I believe you enjoyed this video. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, put on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.